put the F1 one on, and we're in full F1 mode now as we get ready for this week's race in Spain. So before we do that, let's talk about how Canada went, CJ, because even though Max won, it was an entertaining race.
It was, and it was an entertaining weekend. And I think the reason for that is a couple of things. First and foremost, the weather. Practice was wet. Qualifying, the race was, the entire weekend was wet, dry, wet, dry. So it was all about finding the right balance and setup between a wet course and a dry course. And when you throw weather and wet surfaces into these races, a lot of different things can happen. But with the fact that we had McLaren really closing the gap and Ferrari closing the gap as well on Red Bull, the competition, whether it would have just been dry or wet, would have been there anyway, because the Red Bull just doesn't have the advantage that it used to have. And then when you throw in a wet track and wildness breaks out, it's less likely that Verstappen's just going to walk away with it and Red Bull will walk away with it as well. It was a very close race. They had to deal with wet and dry conditions throughout, and it was pretty competitive, and Lando Norris looked like he was in position to be able to challenge for the win again, but under a safety car, in the wet conditions, for some unknown reason, the team decided to call him in to give him a fresh set of intermediate tires when he was already on intermediate tires. I think he should have just stuck it out, but because he came in at the time that he did, he ended up losing a ton of track position, ended up basically handing it over to Verstappen, who was able to stay in front for the win. So Verstappen won again, like you said, another type of, if you just looked at the headlines, you'd think it's extremely boring, but the competition between the top three teams and even Mercedes had their upgrades in Canada, and they look quick as well for Lewis Hamilton and George Russell. So I think we might be entering a four-way fight amongst the top teams to really be able to challenge for race wins going forward here. And this weekend, when we head to Spain, this is a track completely incomparable to Canada and Monaco that we've had before. The teams know this track so exceptionally well. They do a ton of testing at this track. They've raced on here all the way back since 1991. So everybody has just put in tons of miles at this track. So you're really going to be able to see the true car at work.
So in other words, we're going to have a boring race.
No, I don't know about that. You're going to see how good McLaren is. You're going to see how close they are to Red Bull. You're going to see how Ferrari is. You're going to see how much those Mercedes improvements that
have actually caught up
the order.
Okay.
Yeah, you're going to see how close they came up. I'm not saying this is going to be a walkaway Max Verstappen win by any stretch of the imagination. I think McLaren, Ferrari, and Mercedes are probably all going to be in there with a good fight. But this is going to be the race that tells you what to expect for the future. So if it's close, you can expect that Max Verstappen is going to lose some more races throughout the rest of the season. If it's not close, or if somebody's ahead, they're going to be the ones that are going to be the leaders over the next several races here.
Okay, so talk a little bit about the situation with Sergio Perez last week. So again, for the novice F1 fans like myself, a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, so
it was awful.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, but the whole idea about why he got penalized and what happens when you're supposed to leave and you don't, is that what was going on? And, could there have been like is the reason you're getting penalized because it could impact the race, and maybe you're trying to help your teammate, which we've talked about before with who's the guy that gets all those penalties to help his teammates out.
Kevin Magnussen in support of Nico Hulkenberg.
Yeah. So that's pretty much why he was penalized, Perez. Same. That's the intent, right? Okay. So
I think that even beyond that, I think the big story for Perez is they announced that he's extended his time at Red Bull. It's has been the best car in the field. Max Verstappen's been dominating with it. You would expect the second driver in the best car on the field to be finishing second consistently. Yeah, he's not going to be able to beat Max Verstappen in a head-to-head fight, but he should still be head and shoulders above the rest of the competition when you've got that type of car. And if for whatever reason anything happens to Verstappen, that's why you've got a second driver in the same car. Perez should be finishing second and taking the lead and taking the win if Verstappen, for whatever reason, can't. And he just has not been able to do that. So it was surprising that they extended his contract with Red Bull. He was out of contract. They did announce just before Canada that he would stay with the team, and then immediately rewarded them with not getting out of the Q3 qualifying, the first round of qualifying. So he ended up starting so far back in the field. It just basically had no chance. And again, it's more Perez. He brings money to the team through his sponsorships, and that's why he's staying with Red Bull. But given that the manufacturer and the constructor's title is the most important thing, and that's how all these teams end up getting paid, Perez has got to be doing a lot more. He ended up starting 16th, ended up having a DNF at the end of the day, crashing out. That's not the way you want to have a race weekend immediately after remarkably and luckily getting extended for another couple of seasons with the best team on the grid.
Okay, so this is what happened. This is what was said last week regarding the whole Perez incident. And again, this is just for fans like me that really are just trying to learn the rules of F1. So Red Bull said it had instructed Perez to head back to the pits rather than leave the car at the side of the crash, and that's to avoid a safety car. Okay, so and I want you to explain the whole safety car thing to me, because they don't have it in NASCAR, so I don't even know what the hell they're talking about. So as what happened was he got a penalty for it, and then as you talked about where he started and all that. Okay, fine. So here are some of the responses from some of the fans that know what's going on. One fan said, Red Bull team admitted they wanted to avoid a safety car, risking other driver safety instead of risking a Verstappen win. Perez takes the bullet. Verstappen gets the benefit. Logical consequence would have been a team penalty, grid reduction for both drivers, and a team fine. That sends a deterrent signal to all teams. Another comment. The reality of this move is that Verstappen was given an advantage of no safety car. Not cool. Red Bull. Not cool. One might even call it manipulation or a bastardization of the rules. I just call it cheating. Another comment. Very dangerous decision. No concern for other drivers' situations. Selfish as well. And then the last one. We deserve all the drama we can get after the last couple of years. Red Bull robbed us of even more chaos by avoiding a safety car. They must pay. Those were the four anti comments. Which one of those, if any of them,
none
makes sense to you? None. The ones that are on your side, we've got 3 places seems fair. I doubt Perez will be able to make them up anyway. Second one, I failed to see how dealing with a few parts falling off a damaged car on its way to the pits is less safe than having that car park on the circuit, the driver get out, and crews come out to clear the car. If a car can safely get to the pits, I think it should. Any debris can be dealt with as needed. And the last positive one on your side, if a driver can get a car back to the pits, that is what he should do. The existing penalty was itself too harsh.
Yeah, I mean, the reason the penalty is there is because, like you said, Verstappen benefited. Was it on purpose and intentional? Red Bull has no idea, what's going to fall off the car and what's not. It's not like somebody inspected the car and said, "Oh, we think this piece is going to stay on or not." I mean, I agree. If you can get to the pits safely, you should do so. The driver can't even see, what pieces are going to fall off the car. They can't even see the front wing. They can barely see the tops of the front wheels. So to expect them to be able to make an informed decision about what the condition of the car is, what condition the car is in terms of what pieces may or may not fall off, and have the wherewithal to then be able to make that call to the benefit of the other car, it is just ludicrous. And yeah, in the back of your head that Verstappen doesn't want a safety car, but I don't know. I think this is a lot of pent up aggression of the fact that Verstappen won again when it could have been more competitive. At the end of the day, McLaren made the wrong decision. They pitted Norris when he should have stayed out. That would have made the race more competitive. And it was just a bad call on the McLaren team. And you can't fault Red Bull for, doing exactly what I think any other team in the same situation would have done. And the reason that Perez gets a penalty is because his teammate benefited. And people should be happy with that.
Well, those fans probably, maybe they don't realize that they should become NASCAR fans. Because that's exactly what NASCAR would have done.
Exactly right.
They would have.
Think of who was the one that ended up. So he was in a wreck. It was an Xfinity race. Josh Williams wrecked in an Xfinity race at Atlanta. Went into the pits, made repairs, went out. Some random piece, like the tape, blew off, and so there was another piece of the car that fell off. It was completely not on purpose. It's the same repair teams do all the time. NASCAR decided to park him, like have him exit the race because another piece of his car, he returned to the track and a piece of his damaged car fell off. So where did he park it? Right on the start finish line in the middle of the race. So they had to come out and tow his car and he walked back to the pits. That is NASCAR. So yeah, compare the two, and any kind of random debris caution that NASCAR would throw out versus Formula One.
And speaking of manipulation, I mean, we know NASCAR.
Truex at Richmond.
Look at last week. Who was it that hit the
trip in the past? Yeah,
and they were freaking out. They're like, "Why? Why'd you throw the caution out?"
Yep.
I mean, So all right. So quickly then. So the safety car idea. Explain the difference between why Indy has a safety car rule and NASCAR doesn't.
Formula One's got a couple of different versions of caution. So first of all, they're on a road course. So if there is some localized issue, they can just have one sector be a caution sector. The rest of the track can be green. You can go race, but you've got to have a minimum speed where that yellow flag is. The next level up is a virtual safety car, which means you hold your position, you hold the gap to the car in front and behind, but everybody goes at a reduced pace. So that gives time or gaps within the field, either for a car to get off the track or for marshals to come out and get something out. In other words, it neutralizes the field, but enables the advantage or lack of advantage to stay. Or the next and the final highest tier is a full out safety car. So the full blown safety car is when the safety car actually comes out onto the track. It picks up the leader, and everybody else, whether you're 3/4 of a lap, almost getting lapped, you come around to the back. So you lose, or you're able, if you're the one behind, you gain all that track position back or all that time and distance back. If you're in the lead, obviously the lead that you had vanishes. So it depends on the severity of the incident, the scattering of debris, how much of the track is impacted, et cetera, et cetera. But the reason why these people wanted the caution and why Verstappen didn't is because McLaren made the bad decision. So Norris lost the track position. Norris lost the gap, and Verstappen was able to build that up. And if they would have had the safety car, that would have brought Norris back to Verstappen's wing. We would have had a closer race.
That's like a regular caution, like NASCAR. Everybody gets back to where bumper to bumper.
Exactly right. And it's just, again, it's people that just are tired of seeing Max Verstappen win, which I get.
Yeah,
I get it. But to call it race manipulation, I think, is a stretch.
Okay. Now, this is kind of funny because as we pop up the odds, remember last week we were talking about qualifying, and see, here are the race lines, by the way. Look at Verstappen at minus 190. Look at that.
That's a bargain.
Look at that. And then you got the rest. So look at qualification, and it's 130 because we talked about that last week.
I have no idea why you wouldn't go with the Lando Norris in qualifying here at plus 450. The odds for a Verstappen win versus qualifying, there's no discernible difference between the two. So
that's true. Especially after what happened last week.
Exactly.
It was the first time Max won a race and didn't win the pole.
Yep. Started on the front row though, but yeah, exactly right.
See, that's the reason why we say this all the time. When you're coming up with your systems, your own individual handicapping systems, you've got to be 100% on it. So in the beginning of the season, next season, if you decide, you know what, every time Max Verstappen qualifies for the win, I'm taking him to win the race. He qualifies first. I'm taking him to win the race. I do that every time. You can't pick and choose, because if you pick and choose, you could have chosen, this is the week. Last week, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do it, and you lost. It was the one time he did not win the race after going on the pole. So always, whatever your handicapping strategy is, whatever your own individual rules are, follow them 100%.
Yeah, right. Absolutely agree. It's like trying to time the market. It never works in your favor. But look at Lewis Hamilton there. I mean, you talk about talked about the improvements that Mercedes brought to their car. They finished third and fourth. Russell was on pole, and yeah, you had some weather conditions to deal with, but look at Russell and Hamilton there at plus 900 and plus 1200 for qualifying. And then you look at, when you consider that, every race since 2017 here has been won from the front row, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them were Lewis Hamilton. And yeah, the car is a little bit different than what he had back in those days, but it looks like Mercedes is back. So Lewis Hamilton, George Russell, those might be the two best bargains there. If not, Lando Norris, if you want to stick with the Red Bull McLaren rivalry that's been raging here for the past couple of weeks.
And I noticed, because I was doing it for the first time when we were going over the qualifying idea last week, and that is that you can also wager, of course, on both, which will bring the odds down a little bit in your favor. If you want to say, I want Max Verstappen to qualify first and win the race.
Yeah, I would always, when we're talking Max Verstappen and you're picking him to win the race, I would always pick him to win the pole, exactly like you said. Put those two together, improve your odds. The likelihood of him doing it has been proven to be pretty good.
It's like 80% this year already.
Yeah.
So with the last race being the first time it hasn't happened. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, speaking of Lewis Hamilton, isn't he like a producer on that movie?
On the Apple movie for the Brad Pitt movie that's coming out in June? I'm not sure. Is he? He might be. He may have invested in it. Yeah. They finally set a release date for that. They've been traveling around for the past season or so, doing filming at the back of the grid at the track with the race weekends going on. So it'll be pretty interesting to see how that turns out. We were talking before the show, I haven't had great success or have not liked the racing movies that tend to be produced. The best one I think recently is Rush, was the one with about Niki Lauda and James Hunt. That was a pretty good one.
I thought that was okay. Yeah, I thought that was okay.
That one was a pretty good one, but man, we've had some bombs.
I mean, the Sylvester Stallone one was pretty
terrible.
Bad. It had a bad lead too. So.
Driven. Oh, that was horrible. Yeah.
Oh, who was in Driven? Oh, that was Driven.
That was the Sylvester. Yeah. That was the Sylvester Stallone one, where all it was these spectacular crashes, and every time they go into the race, 90% of them are going to die. Ridiculous.
I know. It is. It's funny how it's so bad watching sports movies sometimes, because you know it too much, and
Yep.
what you're seeing, especially if they go overboard, like that race, like that movie. It's like, oh, come on, man. And it's just, I can't even get into it. But they don't even have a name for the movie yet. So
no, it's the Apple Formula One race, as far as I'm aware of it at the moment. Yeah.
I guess we could all guess what it could be. But hey, Brad Pitt is going to be Sonny Hayes.
That doesn't sound right off the bat.
Yes, Sonny Hayes.
Name. It's already going downhill.
I mean, that's like what's he do? It sounds like he's an American. He shouldn't be an American in F1.
Oh, that's terrible.
Maybe he's at least a Canadian. Who knows? But
they wrecked one of their cars. I know. While they were filming, they wrecked it pretty badly just in the past couple of weeks. So, hopefully they do it justice. I have, Brad Pitt's probably better choice than many others that could be out there. Apple's been doing some pretty good stuff recently, so hopefully it turns out well.
Okay. So yeah, apparently Hamilton is part of the production team. So
there you go.
we'll see if that works out for him or not. Okay. So there you go. That movie will come out in a couple of weeks. And matter of fact, when that comes out, because the next race is when we've got Austria next week. Wait a second.
Yeah.
I thought
We got a couple back-to-backs, so we go straight from Austria as well over to the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. So 3 weeks back-to-back here.
so. This is like the heavy schedule time.
It is. Yep.
We got
Trying to get it all in before the break. Formula One does take a 4-week break where they close all the shops for the summer and send people home to have vacation time. So trying to squeeze in the European season, much of the European season before that hits.
Yeah, it's right at the end of July. So we have Spain, Austria, Great Britain, week off, Hungary, Belgium, break. So, wow, that's what, 5 and 6 weeks?
5 races in 6 weeks.
Good for F1. So this is it. This is like if you miss this time of year, you're screwed. This is the time of year to really dive in full F1. All right.
Some of the best tracks too, by far. In Belgium in particular, absolutely a fantastic track to watch.
All right. So I guess it's coming out. I guess that was my original point was going to be. So I guess it's coming out right after the race at Spain this week. Because I think they said it's coming out. Didn't they say, was it June or July?
I thought it was
June 25th. So it's Tuesday, 2 days after Spain. So it's 6 days from now. Oh, North America is the 27th. I have no idea why it's globally on June 25th. Well, that's probably because it's F1. Who the hell cares in North America compared to globally? But 25th.
No, actually, yeah, next year. So next year.
Oh, next year.
25. Yep. 25.
Why did I think it was this year? Why are they? Probably because why the hell are they talking about it now?
Because they just announced when it was finally coming out. June 25th of 25.
So they haven't even finished production then yet.
No.
Okay, so they're going through it right now. Okay. Yeah, still a little too early to be getting us interested in a movie that's coming out a year from now. But so be it. All right.
It's produced by Bruckheimer. And it's got Kaczynski, who was part of Top Gun Maverick. And
Brad Pitt usually doesn't lose.
Pirates of the Caribbean is related from a production standpoint as well. So
it's got a shot.
Maybe this can be good.
Yeah. All right. Well, next time we talk about it, it will be 365 days from now. So
exactly right.
All right.
It'll still be the Spanish Grand Prix, though.
Yes. Okay. So then what else do we have to look forward to regarding this week? You've got the team. Well, the team is always usually, why would you take Red Bull Racing when you could just take Max?
You would not take Red Bull Racing because we started this whole conversation with the fact that Perez can't back up Verstappen, so you might as well just go straight with Verstappen.
Who would be if you were going to take one, would it be McLaren, like an underdog, or everybody's an underdog after Red Bull, but who would you take?
I think McLaren's going to be the closest to them again, but those odds are still not very appealing at a plus 300. So I might actually lean toward Ferrari or Mercedes there. Mercedes obviously significantly higher in terms of the odds, but Ferrari probably a better chance of being close. So I would look at Ferrari or Mercedes if you're going to go with the teams, because either one of those drivers on either of those teams, you could package them together and you'd have 4 drivers versus Verstappen there. So that might not be a bad idea. But yeah, if you're going to look at qualifying or choosing a Red Bull, take Verstappen for both the pole as well as the win. Otherwise, I think your longer shots are going to be a Lando Norris, or probably take Mercedes actually as the next
what are they,
choice.
6-1?
Mercedes on the race, I want to say I thought I saw them at 1,200.
Mercedes, 12. Yeah. I was looking at Ferrari. All right, Mercedes 12-1. Okay, so you would take Mercedes after McLaren.
You got it.
Okay. And the other one now, how often is this like a 50-50 proposition? Because that's the way the odds have it out. Is this really like 50% of the time there's a safety car and 50% there isn't?
I feel like they've had more safety cars recently. There have been, in the past, there have been a lot of races with no safety cars. I don't know why it's 50-50 for Spain. I would arguably, if the odds were actually differentiated between yes or no, I might take this bet on the no side because Spain's got a ton of runoff room. It's a natural terrain road course. So the chances of needing a full course safety car just are lower than at a place like a Monaco or even a Canada. So I would, if they were differentiated, which they're not, I wouldn't take this bet this week because there's no difference between the two. And I think it's more likely at this track to end up with a no.
All right. So that is going to wrap it up. And your best advice on wagering this week would be just to go ahead with the whole Max Verstappen wins qualifying and the race, or would you go with something else?
My top three choices in terms of order would be the first bet and top choice would be Verstappen for pole and win. My second choice bet would be Lando Norris for the win. My third choice bet would be Mercedes for the win.
Okay, there you go. Pole and win Max, Norris win, Mercedes win. And if you do all three of them, and Max wins, and obviously you have to put more money on Max to win, but if you do that and he does, obviously the only way you really lose the most up is if he does not win the pole and he wins the race, sort of like what happened a couple weeks ago. Because if he doesn't win the pole, the good thing is if he doesn't win the pole, then you can kind of refigure out how you want to wager the race.
Yeah, he might have better race odds at that point. You might
there you go.
Like get some benefit using him straight for the win.
And that's why it's a good wager to do, because hey, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm going to do every week, whatever. And then he doesn't win in the poll, and then you're like, okay, well, now I could just go ahead and now I know I could put a little bit more now on him to win the race. I still think he's going to win. I just have to put a little bit more in it. But like you said, it might come down from minus 190 down to maybe minus 170 or minus 160, maybe. But it's not going to get any worse for you. So
exactly.
All right. That'll wrap it up here for F1 Talk.